Come see how easy it is to make custom bases for your miniatures.
Spiky bits.
What's up, hobby maniacs? I'm Robbie B, and today we are going to show you how easy it is to make custom bases for your miniatures. No matter how big or how small they are, you can use the same tenets we're laying out here to base your miniatures. You can be as simple or as complicated as you want doing this sort of thing, but in this tutorial we're going to show you how to take stuff like cork and combine it with Games Workshop's texture or large basing kits. Now you can use any sort of plastic terrain pieces and different things that they put out. You can even use different elements. Today we're going to use Vallejo Pumice, but you can also use some of the texture paints from Games Workshop as well. The sky is pretty much the limit. It's all in your personal preference. So let's head on over to the paint bench and get right down to it. So there's really just 5 easy steps to basing any model that you might be working on. Here we're working on a Carnosaurus, so I want a little bit of Aztec rubble in the base, and also I want it kind of built up like it's I guess we're not going to go to full jungle theme, maybe running in the plains or something like that, because I don't know, it's blue. So we need to pair it with some browns or something and kind of bring it down and not call enough attention, and with more greens on the base. So we're going to use, first off, the large basing detail kit from Age of Sigmar. So lots of cool Aztec-y looking things here. But conversely, I think greenstuff.com, Green Stuff World, has these rollers that you can use to make Aztec type elements for your bases, which would be another good thing here. Using green stuff, we could have gone that route as well. And we're gonna kind of combo in some of these cork pieces here. So that's really all you need, and some pumice or textured paint like we talked about earlier, some cut up pieces of cork if you have them from a previous project. That will all definitely help out here as well. And you're gonna need some basic tools like X-Acto blade, clippers, maybe a seam scraper or something to get the large basing detail kit apart and figure out the parts that you're going to need. So that's step 1. Select our pieces and trim them out. I grabbed a new base and selected a couple of pieces here that I thought were going to do well for this miniature, and then once I realized that there was enough kind of depth to these pieces here, I realized I probably wouldn't need the cork. So I just kind of 86 the cork. I don't think there's enough room. I think this with some texture is going to look great, and it's broken up the profile and raised up enough that I don't think we need it. And then I drew a shape right here so I'd remember where the foot piece for the Carnosaur is going to go, so we wouldn't cover that up quite as well, or what we do put there will be pretty flat. So part of the second step here is to dry fit everything and just glue it down. So we're going to grab a little bit of our gap filling glue here and just apply it carefully to the parts. Normally I have a little fan blowing in the background just to kind of keep the fumes and everything a little bit scattered throughout the room. So we're just going to keep repeating that and make sure we turn on our fan while we do it. Once all that dries, then it's off to the races with some pumice. Now you don't have to worry about repositioning. You can see where some glue got all crazy because I reposition things. No big deal. It'll still stick. Just leave it, let it dry, make sure it's making contact, and you're good to go. Now we're going to grab our handy dandy pumice here, and they make this in a bunch of different colors. This is kind of the uncolored one. I've added chunks of other grit. I think I even put some cat litter in here, believe it or not. A great way to get nice beefy chunks of texture for your bases here. Now I grabbed a custom sculpting tool as well. I don't really do as much sculpting as I used to, so I'm loving this little ladle right here that can just kind of like grab the stuff out of here and lay it down and kind of smooth it out. This is a little bit drier than it needs to be. Should look more like this liquidy stuff right here. I was just trying to use some of the junk up in the top there. It has started to dry out. Now, when you're not storing your pumice, or when you're storing it and not using it rather, you're probably going to want to keep it in a Ziploc bag to try to keep it as airtight as possible. This stuff will dry out. It's just kind of an eventuality. So now we're just going to kind of take the ladle and do our best to butt the texture up onto the pieces here. You can even go over. It's okay. It'll pretty much keep its shape and texture. It won't really shrink or recede. So we're just going to kind of work this all over the base and let it spread out and make sure we got some nice big chunks of texture in there as well. So there it is. We went through, we blocked it all out, and now it's time to do our touch-ups and just kind of let things dry. Now, I dug out a spot right here for the Carnosaur's foot to actually go and get glued down, and then I'll probably live stream it on Twitch, like showing the folks on there how we went ahead and did this pumice thing, because we're doing it here on the tutorial. But now we're going to do cool stuff like, you can see where there might be too much depth. Like, I want to leave depth here, so I want to make sure that all of that is down flat. But then I also want to do cool stuff like maybe the wind's blowing this way, so you can pull your pumice up onto the rocks, but leave it like it has blown off this side here, so sort of like this, right? And you can just kind of come through and do cool effects like that. Make sure everything's as flat, or you can, you know, make little mounds of texture if you want. It's gonna kind of recede a little bit, but it'll, for the most part, kind of keep that shape. You can see right here, the crispier kind of top of the pizza crust already is starting to dry out. That's where we started on camera, and then I did the rest around here. So I'm just going to kind of go through and tinker with things a little bit, make sure that we've got our lip all completely clear around here as well, because that stuff, once it dries, it's very hard to work with. You can see that even though I peeled back a bunch right here, some of it had already dried to the base, but that's okay. It should still kind of come off when I scrape it right there. So that's step 4, is some touch-ups, and we're just gonna kind of let this thing dry. Once this is all dry, then we can hit it with some primer. Like I was saying, I would recommend black primer, because you're going to want a nice dark under depth to pretty much any model that you're going to do here. You can tell looking at this particular model that the blue up here would clash well with a like lighter base here. So we're going to go with a darker, like I said, kind of brown or deserty kind of theme on the bottom that'll kind of bring back and add to the contrast. And that's what it's all about when it comes to basing stuff. Now, we're going to let it dry a little bit more before we hit it with primer, because you can see that even though it's starting to crust up, it still isn't 100% completely dry. But at this point, just kind of leave it out, let it dry at its own pace, maybe 3 to 4 hours. If you put it under a fan, you might cut that time in half, and then hit it with some black primer, and then come on back and start painting it, which is going to probably be the topic of another video here, like how to paint your bases to match your miniature up top. So those are the 5 steps to making your own custom bases. Of course, you can always buy resin bases straight from any, you know, producer out there, from Secret Weapon Minis to Elric's Hobbies. Everybody has a great design out there, and I think there is some Aztec-y type bases already out there, but I wanted to try to match some of the G-Dub styling to the Carnosaur itself, because they have these glyphs on it already that I thought would go good with the Sigmar bases here. So that was just why we went in this direction. But sometimes you're not going to be able to purchase a base in the design you want, so that's why it's good to have these skills and be aware of some of this texture type material out there, so that you can make your own custom bases no matter what. And then remember, we could have added in some of this cork, but I felt like it would just be too much in this instance. And since we were talking about the cork, and I don't want to leave you without a dope beat to step to, here is our custom creature caster base that we did. Same exact steps to produce it, except for you can see right here that we added in some cork to it to make these little mounds out here, so that this centerpiece wouldn't be all of the attention, and you can see we just kind of put those around there and then just butted up the texture to it. So that is kind of two different schools of thought on how you can make your own custom bases right there. So if you like these type of features here on this channel, make sure you subscribe to us and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on these videos, and head on over to the longwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.